Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Today we have Jim Cramer joining again to discuss the latest on Tesla. This morning we had a new note out from Dan Ives of Wedbush, increasing his bull case price target to $3,500 per share, keeping his neutral rating and keeping his base case price target at $1,900 per share. So just wanted to discuss a little bit of that today with Jim. Thanks for joining, Jim.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, good morning, Rob. I have to tell you, we did a piece last week, and I've been doing Twitter since 2009. I've been commenting on many different stocks since 1984. Writing, this was the greatest outpouring I've ever seen. I think a lot of it was because it was not hit and run; it was thought out, and it's because you are, I think, the best expert I've heard on this. Which is why when I saw the Wedbush piece saying China growth trajectory robust and battery day key equals 3,500 new bull case, and then I saw the stock was down, I said, for those who really love Tesla, it's better to buy something when it's down than when it's flying. So I wanted to ask you first, what's the credibility of Daniel Ives, given the fact he has a bull case and he's neutral? And second, does he have any sort of insight that others don't?
Yeah, so I think on Wedbush, Dan Ives is definitely a very respected analyst among Wall Street. I think there's a website that ranks analysts based on their calls out there, Tip ranks, and he's in the top, couple percent of analysts on that website. So he definitely does a good job. He's covered Tesla well. In terms of his note this morning and specifically the comments on China, that's definitely accurate. China is hitting a production run rate of 150,000 units per year right now, and that's actually a bit understated. Over the last couple of months, Tesla has registered about 26,500 vehicles in China. So if we extrapolate that to an annual run rate, that's about 160,000. So even over the last couple of months, Tesla has already been there. And in their Q2 update letter, they said that they're going to hit 200,000 production run rate in China, Shanghai, in the middle of 2020. So that's where we are right now. And Tesla's already ahead of that 150,000 from Dan's note this morning.
All
So
right,
I
now
think that's
battery day next on tap. Million
Mhm.
mile battery announcement, drum roll. Again, I learned from you last week that perhaps we should be thinking about is the capacity to build. But this is again what the thing that I was asking about, which is this is the so-called million mile battery, of which some wag said to me this weekend who loved our podcast. Don't you realize if there's a million-mile battery, no one will ever get a new Tesla? So the idea that you buy a GM car and 4 years later you buy a new GM car is out. He will make it so his cars are never traded in. And I thought that you could address both the battery issue and that complaint.
Yeah, so we'll start with the million mile battery. I think we touched on it last week, but essentially a million mile battery just means that for the life of the car, it can, instead of going 150,000, 200,000 miles, it can last a million miles. So you're going to get 5 times the amount of utilization. For a normal use case, that would imply that the vehicle could last 40, 50 years. Obviously, people aren't going to keep their vehicle that long, but Tesla's really pushing for this because they envision an electric robotaxi type of environment someday where the utilization of vehicles is higher and maybe they're traveling 50,000 miles a year or 100,000 miles a year instead of the usual 10 to 15,000. So that's really why Tesla's pushing for the longevity in terms of the battery life. And as we talked about last week, this is something that's already available in battery technology. That's about 3,500 cycles if you just say, okay, 300 miles per cycle. And Tesla already has that technology in their Powerwall energy products today. So it's nothing new. It's really just about finding the balance between that, energy density, all the competing priorities that go into battery technology. And I think Tesla will have some exciting updates for us on that front on Battery Day, during Battery Day. And as we talked about last week, too, just the production roadmap for them to scale eventually to 20 million vehicles per year. And then on the second point, on not having to replace your Tesla every 4 years, I think that's an interesting consideration. And something we also talked about last week is that Tesla just doesn't really care about stuff like that. They're really just focused on providing as much value they can to the end customer. And they believe that that is the path to success rather than, building in margin from service or building in margin from vehicle turnover year to year. And Tesla right now is in a position where they can, they don't have to plan for things like that because their market share is so small. There's so much market yet for them to grab that they don't need to worry so much about making sure their customers are coming back every 4 years. It's just not important to their business yet.
It's very interesting that that's Apple's perspective. That's what Apple does. When you ask them about going and what's the next thing and what's this, they say, look, well, the next thing is this. When we have a great something ad, a watch, something for to listen. we will put it out, but we won't put it out beforehand, and stop trying to bother us about when we're going to do it, because we're just, here's when we're going to do it, when we think that people are going to love it. And I think that one of the great reasons why Tesla is up is Tesla shares Apple's view, which is that, look, we'll put it out when it's great. And that's what converted me to Tesla. There's a guy on Twitter that says, "Well, you've always hated Tesla." I said, "Well, I've hated Tesla except for the last 1,800 points." Okay. Now, let me ask you this: when we look at this, is a very complex question that I got when I was on the beach, so to speak. I was saying, look, this company could be justified as this valuation if it continues to introduce new technologies, and if it conceivably takes over gigantic share. I love what you just said, which is it's really very small right now. There's a lot to grow. But then the comeback was, "Oh, Jim, please. I mean, it can't get up to where Ford is in terms of the number of cars." And I said, it will get up to where it has to go. The guy's just trying to meet the demand. I mean, am I wrong
Yeah.
about this?
No, I completely agree with that train of thought. I think there's no reason to assume that Tesla can't get to that market share without, providing some sort of backing analysis to it. I think Tesla has shown in the markets that they've played in with the Model 3, the Model S, the Model X, they've been able to be the market share leader. And Tesla's goal is to continue to make their cars more affordable and enter higher volume segments. So, based on the track record we have of Tesla entering a new market and dominating it, I don't see any reason for that to necessarily change, as Tesla continues to make their vehicles more affordable and continue to provide that amazing value proposition that we talked about.
You have a special relationship with the company. If I understand, I heard about you because you're on the conference call, correct?
Sort of. So Tesla does something a little bit unique. They actually have a system in place with a third party that allows them to, or allows retail investors to submit and vote on questions for the earnings call. And because of the following that I have in the retail Tesla investment community, fortunately, I'm in a position where a lot of my questions end up being asked. So yeah, last quarter I got three questions in on Tesla's earnings call, which is, I think, really cool of Tesla to offer that and kind of gives a voice to the retail investor.
Well, I'm glad that he does it and you did it, because the without that, we just tended to get the same questions over and over again that basically made it so that Musk got frustrated because, when you think about it, obviously his stock is at 2,000, and when they were 200, you got a lot of complaints. Now, I listened to complaints too, and I heard them. But when I heard you come on, I mean, you asked the common sense questions, and which leads me to a big question. Will you be allowed to go to Battery Day?
So Tesla actually just provided an update on this last week. They're doing a random drawing of shareholders to see who can go because the capacity is going to be so limited just because of the restrictions still around coronavirus and large group events. So they're just doing a completely random drawing of anyone that is a shareholder that submits into the drawing, and it'll be pretty limited capacity. So I think my odds are pretty low. I'll definitely make an effort, but we'll just have to see.
Oh my God, that's so cool. So there really is a chance a lucky lottery winner can get to see this thing.
Yeah, there will be a few at least.
Wow. All right, let me just circle back one more time to China.
Yeah.
I'm reading that China this weekend, Shanghai wide open for business, Beijing, Wuhan area wide open, which leads me to believe that they could have whatever Tesla makes, they can sell. So that leads me to the next thing, which is that at what point does he expand capacity?
Yeah, that's a great point that I wanted to also address. So I think one of the most exciting things about Gigafactory Shanghai is the implication for the rest of Tesla's business outside of China. They went from breaking ground in Shanghai to actually producing vehicles in just 10 months. And now we're about 18 months past that breaking ground point. And as we talked about, they're approaching a production rate of 200,000 vehicles per year. So that speed of production, getting to production and ramping up production is pretty unprecedented. To my knowledge, I don't have another instance of anything like that ever happening before. And what that shows is how quickly Tesla can expand. So right now they have Gigafactory Berlin in construction. They have Gigafactory Texas in construction. Berlin broke ground about 3 months ago. Texas broke ground earlier this month. So if we fast forward 10 months and Tesla can even achieve the same timeline that they achieved in Shanghai on those two factories, we could be looking at Tesla's production capacity next year, towards the end of next year, already being at about 1.3 million vehicles in terms of the run rate at the end of the year. And if we go back to Dan Ives' note, I think analysts are in general pretty conservative on Tesla's growth rate. Dan Ives, for example, in his base case, so his $1,900 price target, he is forecasting Tesla's deliveries in 2025 to be 1.3 million vehicles. And Tesla has the potential to be at that capacity at the end of 2021. So I think Gigafactory Shanghai shows what Tesla can achieve in such a quick amount of time, and that's going to be shown again with Gigafactory Berlin and Giga Texas over the next 12 months.
Wow. Well, look, you've answered all the things that I'm interested in. I'm anxious to get this out because your following is immense, and I want the people who follow me on the street to know about your stuff because it's the first time I've ever had the context. I don't know Dan Ives. I only know people who think that the stock is way overvalued, except for the people who introduced me to the car. And I think it's an interesting dichotomy that the people who on Wall Street who don't drive Teslas think it's overvalued, and the people who drive Teslas, who are very smart people, think, hey, wait a second, just let it run. So anyway, Rob, I thank you for letting me be on your show.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I really appreciate the time. It's always fun to have these discussions. We should definitely get one of those bearish people on sometime and have a debate.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.